Hello, my name is Denise Evanishin, and I am doing this presentation as part of my 3240 Media Enhanced Assignment from my Provincial Instructor's Diploma program through Vancouver Community College. This is assignment number 3, and my instructor is Brian Castle. I am going to talk about my passion, which is nursing. As nursing has so many components to it, I'm going to talk about nursing documentation and why nurses are seen doing so much of it. I am going to tell you what nurses are really doing when they are sitting behind the nursing station. Nursing documentation is a vital part of any nurse's day and has strict rules that apply as to how and what a nurse must document. All nurses must document according to the policies of their employer and the standards set by their individual regulatory college. The nurses' regulatory colleges define documentation as any written or electronically generated information about a client that describes the care or services provided to that client. Documentation serves 3 purposes. 1 is communication. Documentation provides communication to other healthcare professionals about what tests, procedures, and assessments have happened to the patient during the shift. 2. Safe and appropriate care. When documentation is done correctly, the next shift of nurses is able to review the care given and the plan to continue safe and appropriate care to the patient. Documentation also provides information for research and job issues that can help improve the workplace. 3. Professional and legal standards. All healthcare professionals have a legal and professional obligation to document. It is through documentation the healthcare professional can prove that care has been given. In a court of law, healthcare documentation is what is used to prove that correct care was provided. Each nurse is responsible for their own documentation and must never document for another nurse, unless it is in an emergency. In an emergency situation, there is a designated recorder whose sole job is to document the entire event. Nursing documentation must be done as soon as possible after care is given, so that if an emergency arises, there is an up-to-date record of all the care that has been provided. And so that nurses do not forget what time and what care they have provided. Nurses document the nursing process, which is the assessment of the patient, the plan, the intervention, and the evaluation of the treatment, or what they have reported to another healthcare professional and the healthcare professional's response. All documentation must be in chronological order, clear, concise, factual, objective, timely, and legible, and only use abbreviations that have been approved by the employer. If something has been forgotten and not documented, the responsible nurse must return and document the activity themselves. Never should documentation on a chart be changed or deleted. It can be added to, but once it is there, it becomes a part of a legal document. If the information on the chart is wrong, then a line is drawn through it and initialed by the nurse. Remember that only the nurse that made the error can make the correction. Documentation happens on many parts of the chart. There are doctors' order sheets where doctors and other healthcare providers can leave orders for the nurses to follow. It is the nurse's responsibility to check for any new orders several times a day. Nurses' notes where the nurses document what has happened during the shift. Medication administration records, where nurses must document every single medication that they give or did not give. There are records to be done if something has gone wrong with the patient, such as a patient falling. Form to send with the patient going to the operating room, another form to complete when the patient returns from the operating room. There are forms that keep track of vital signs, which are sometimes done every half hour. Admission forms that are as long as 4 pages that have all the medication and personal history of the patient. This is done so the patient is able to return home in the same, if not better condition than when they entered the hospital. Discharge forms so that when the patient goes home, they are aware of follow-up appointments with their doctors, physio, and community contact information if needed. so that they know what to expect as they continue to recover at home. Forms to fill out if there's any types of tests, such as an X-ray, MRI, CAT scan, or blood tests needed to be done. These forms are used by the radiology or lab departments to ensure that the correct test is indeed done. The test results are then sent to the doctor for assessment. If you are transferred to another facility, there is the form that must be filled out to say what care was provided, instructions from another department such as the physio, or follow-up instructions from the doctor, along with any current or future needs that the patient may have, so that continued care can be given. This is just a few of the many forms used that nurses are required to document on. Every area of the hospital will have their own set of forms, such as the diabetic, wound care, and vascular forms. Intensive care and emergency departments have their own forms. Each nurse is expected to become familiar with the document forms in their own area of work. According to the Nursing Journal, 1/3 of a nurse's time each shift is spent on documenting procedures or events that have happened. It is through all of this documentation that a nurse can prove that they have provided safe, competent, and ethical care to the patient. So, if you are a nurse, remember that documentation is a legal requirement of your job and should be taken seriously. As a self-regulated professional, you are responsible to stay current with any of the changes to documentation from either your employer or the regulatory college. So if you are not a nurse, please remember that the nurse you see sitting around the desk are indeed examining the charts to see that all the information is accounted for, to make sure and ensure that every patient has received safe, competent, and ethical care. Thank you for watching, and I hope that this short presentation has given you an idea of what the nurses are actually doing when they are sitting at the desk.